it's my pleasure. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me walk us through sort of our meeting for tonight and how it's going to work as far as participation goes. So if you're joining us on WebEx, you can type your questions into the chat, and we will be answering them during our Q&A portion later on. You can just type your questions in at any time. We also want to advise everyone that this meeting is being recorded. At this time, I would like to introduce Supervisor Janice Hahn, 4th District Supervisor, who has brought us all here tonight. The supervisor met many of you last Sunday in Diamond Bar, where she stood in solidarity with the community at the Anti-Asian Hate Rally. She also strongly supports and has shown her commitment to provide more patrols in the unincorporated communities of Hacienda Heights and Roland Heights. Supervisor Hahn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you to everybody who's joining us tonight for this meeting. For those of you who don't know, Lauren Yokamizo serves as my field deputy for the Hacienda Heights, Roland Heights, Diamond Bar, and La Habra Heights areas. And if you haven't met her and you ever need any help in your commitment in your community, you should contact her, as well as Nick Holden, who is her assistant field deputy. And they are there every single day to help you. And maybe at some point during this meeting, Lauren, you can make sure you can give out your contact information if they need to call the office. I also want to thank the sheriff. I don't think he's on yet, but I will say it again when he comes on. I really appreciate the sheriff himself, Ian Nueva, for being with us tonight. I think it's really important that he is here and he can answer your questions that you care most about. I thought it was really important that we have this meeting tonight. I've absolutely been horrified by the escalation of anti-Asian hate that we've seen this past year, but especially these past few weeks. On Sunday, I met with a group of residents from Hacienda Heights and Roland Heights who told me how vulnerable and afraid they are right now. One woman who I met, Mrs. Tsai, was the victim of violent purse snatching. She still wears a neck brace from that attack. And it broke my heart when she told me that she actually feels guilty for deciding to leave the house that day and go shopping. And later that day, on Sunday, I was so inspired to see all of our communities come out in force in Diamond Bar to protest anti-Asian hate. But just a few minutes after I left that rally, a man drove through the demonstrators trying to cross the crosswalk and shouted racial slurs at them. And then just a few days ago, we had another incident in Hacienda Heights where a woman threw things at bakery employees and used derogatory language just because she was asked to wear a mask in the store. And I really want to say that I appreciate our sheriff's department and our deputies for investigating each and every one of these incidents. I know this community is reeling right now. I've heard from people who are afraid to walk around their neighborhoods or to be alone in their businesses. And I've heard from people who are afraid to go to the grocery store or even leave their home. And I want you to know tonight that I will do everything I can to make sure that you not only are safe, but that you feel safe. We have an important lineup of speakers tonight who are going to talk about the different aspects of how we're addressing these problems. We have Detective Justin Cham, who's going to talk about hate crimes in particular and the rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans. We also have acting captains Stephen Tausey and Rick Rector, who will speak about what their stations are doing to address crime and hate. And I think it's important that tonight we have with us experts from LA versus Hate. LA versus Hate is a campaign led by the LA County's Human Relations Commission to address the normalization of hate and inspire people to stand up to it. It also is an effort to teach people about what constitutes a hate incident, and how they can report it if it happens to them. We know that for all the hate crimes we hear about, there are so many more that go unreported, and that needs to change. If you are the target of hate or violence, it is important that you report it to the Sheriff's Department right away. You can also report a hate crime by calling 211. There is no shame. You are a survivor, and you can and should tell your story. No one should suffer in silence. To all of my AAPI residents, I want you to know that I stand with you and will continue to work to do everything I can to make sure your voices are heard and that you can once again feel safe in your own community. Thank you, and now I'm going to turn it back to Lauren.
Okay. Can I just ask at this time, thank you, Supervisor. Can I ask at this time if I can get confirmation from whether or not we have Sheriff Ian Nueva on the line with us? If not, we'll just move on. So not seeing any confirmation. Right now, we'll just move on to our presentation. So it's my pleasure right now to introduce our main speakers for tonight. We have Detective Justin Kong, and afterward, the county's anti-hate program, LA Hate. Our speakers will speak on issues of crime and hate, but also offer solutions to the problems our communities are facing now. First up, Detective Kong, a detective for Major Crimes Bureau, handling hate crimes. And he and I have spoken, and I can tell you that he is passionate about this topic. Detective, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. I'm Detective Justin Kong with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I'm the hate crimes coordinator for our hate crimes unit. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you about such an important topic, especially now. I'll try to give you as much insight as I have, and also some recommendations on things we can do to actually resolve the problem. The first thing that I'd like to do is real briefly go over our structure of government for our state government. Because if we kind of understand how our government works and all the different components and our roles and responsibilities, it makes it a little easier to see why things work and how we can actually improve in which areas. So we have three main branches of government in our state, in every state. The first one is legislative, and that includes the state assembly and the state senate, and their job is to write the laws. Every state has its own set of laws which are written by their legislative branch. So they write all of the definitions that we're going to speak about in a minute. And they write our actual penal code laws that the other branches work with later on down the line. So actually, after the legislative branch, we have the executive branch. The executive branch, that includes law enforcement, the district attorney's office, and their responsibility is to enforce the laws. So they enforce the laws that the legislature writes. The third branch is the judicial branch, and that's our court system. So they apply and interpret the laws. So after the law enforcement gathers the information during their investigation, statements from witnesses and evidence, they hand it over to the district attorney's office. And they, with a fine-tooth comb, figure out which laws specifically apply to that case based on the circumstances. And then when it goes to the judicial branch, the court system applying the laws, they apply the due process and handle it after that. So that's the chain of custody for all the information when there's a violation or potential violation of the law. And it is important to know that each state writes its own laws. So if we hear something on the news about an incident somewhere in another state, they have different laws than we do. So something that might be illegal here, they might not have a law that covers that. So we'll start off by going over what a hate crime actually is. And there are two distinctions regarding hate. There's a hate crime, and then there's a hate incident. So starting, we'll go to the next slide. So with a hate crime, it's defined as any criminal act or attempted criminal act directed against the victim in whole or in part because of the actual perceived characteristics of the victim. And then the definition goes on to define what these characteristics, the protected characteristics are. They're disability, gender, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and association with a group of persons with one or more of the above characteristics. So after hate crime, we have hate incident. And a hate incident is defined as any non-criminal act, including words directed at a person or persons motivated by bias against a person, group, or place. So some of the examples of hate incident would be name calling, it could be profanity, insults, epithets. And it's also important to know that hate incidents could also be protected under the First Amendment and freedom of speech. So just because it's hate speech and insulting doesn't mean it actually violates a crime. It's protected with the First Amendment to a point. So I'd like to give you an example of a hate incident and kind of walk you through when it stops being an incident and turns into a hate crime. And this is one that actually happened here in Los Angeles County. It happened on July 22nd. There were two vehicles on the road. One was behind the other, and as they approached the intersection, the vehicle behind drove around and stopped in front of the other vehicle. At that point, the driver got out of that first vehicle, ended up being the suspect, and he approached the second car, and as he got out of his vehicle, the passenger in that second car, the victim's vehicle, started recording on her cell phone. The suspect got out of his vehicle and started yelling white power, and he gave a Nazi salute in front of the driver of the second vehicle, who happened to be black. At this point, the passenger in the other vehicle is also yelling only white lives matter and a bunch of other profanities that are directed at that second vehicle. At this point, everything that's happened so far is hate speech. They've made no threats. They haven't done anything physically to the victims. And so this would be classified basically as a hate incident. But the incident didn't stop there. The driver of that first vehicle, the suspect vehicle, went back to his vehicle and retrieved a shovel. He walked back to the victim's vehicle and proceeded to strike the victim's vehicle with the shovel, damaging the vehicle and also threatening the physical safety of the occupants of the vehicle. So they were able to drive off and the incident concluded. But since everything was on video and there were good witnesses to describe exactly what happened, the investigation was able to reveal that a hate crime occurred also. So we only had the information about the first part. Say there was a witness that was standing on a corner and they heard everything that happened, and then they walked away and they didn't see the shovel, they would be reporting a hate incident. And the same thing the other way around, if somebody walked up and only saw the incident with the shovel, they would only see the assault or the vandalism of the vehicle, and we wouldn't have had the hate aspect of it, so it would just be a regular crime. So that's why it's important report every hate incident and every hate crime, because we're able to put all of that information together. Sometimes one party will have one puzzle piece and another one will have another, but we put them both together and we get a total picture, and we can accurately produce complete investigation. So next, we'll go into what our hate crime procedures are. And hate crimes on the Sheriff's Department are extremely serious, and they're given a high priority. So with other non-emergent crimes, it's given a higher priority, and deputies will be dispatched as soon as the call comes in. So if somebody's calling in to report a hate incident or a hate crime, I'm sorry, the next slide. So deputies will be dispatched immediately, and when they get there, they're trained in identifying hate crimes and also hate incidents. But their first priority is going to be the safety of the victim. If they need immediate assistance, if they need medical assistance, so we'll provide them with whatever support they need immediately. The second one, they're going to be concerned about, is the suspect nearby? Do we need to coordinate a search, or do we need any other assistance in apprehending the suspect? After that, then they'll start asking for information about the incident and what happened. If there's any other witnesses, if you have any other information that can actually help us find out who did this, so we can stop the pattern. After the deputy takes the information from the report, he immediately notifies the supervisor of the incident and what happened. He also notifies our department's hate crimes task force, where the task force reviews the information and sees if there's any connection on a larger scale to something where we can use the assistance of other agencies or any other resources that are provided by the state for hate crimes. All right, so we'll go over some stats. Stats are difficult because they don't always tell the entire picture, and especially with hate crimes, that is even more true. The only information that we have when it comes to stats is what's given to us. So if people report them, we have stats for that. But if people are hesitant on reporting a hate crime or a hate incident, there's going to be a large number of incidents that we don't have any records of. So that's why it's extremely important that everybody reports every hate incident and every crime, because then we'll be able to better get a handle on what's causing these, the individuals that are causing these, and stop them from their patterns if it's repeat offenders, but it's also identify the causes, and we can start developing programs to address the causal factors. So the 2 years that we have some information on these slides are from 2019 and 2020. This first slide here is about some of our 2019 statistics. On the left side, we'll see our actual hate crimes for the entire county. And these numbers only reflect Sheriff's Department numbers, so our sheriff stations in our county areas. So we have 42 contract cities and 141 unincorporated communities that we take reports for. So these numbers are for those. So in 2019, as far as hate crimes against Asians specifically, we had 1. For African American community, we had 19. Hispanic was 5. Anti-sexual orientation was 9. Anti-religious was 4. And anti-other race or ethnicity was 1. Now, hate incidents, we typically get a lot more hate incidents. There are a lot more incidents that don't quite rise to the level of a crime, but they're serious nonetheless. And so we do track those. That is our way of getting a really good picture about what's going on in certain areas, and it helps us develop and design different approaches to address the community and their problems. So if there's not a crime, doesn't mean that there's no problem. So for incidents, again, we had 1 incident that was anti-Asian, anti-African American, we had 23, anti-Hispanic 14, anti-religious 13. So the numbers are almost double that of our crimes. And again, they're only as accurate as what's presented to us. So next slide, please. So now we move a little closer, and this is 2020. In 2020, our numbers were quite different than 2019. So you'll see our actual hate crimes in 2020, anti-Asian went from 1 to 4. Anti-African American went to 33. Anti-Hispanic went to 10. Anti-sexual orientation went to 9. Anti-religious went to 3. So you'll notice that some of the hate crime numbers actually went down in certain groups, whereas others went up. And hate incidents went up also from 78 total incidents to 90 total incidents. Incidents, we went for anti-Asian, we went from 1 to 6. Anti-African American, we went from 23 to 36. Anti-Hispanic, we went to 7. Anti-other ethnicity, 5. Anti-religious, 12. Anti-sexual orientation, 11. Anti-white, 1. Again, it's really difficult to look at numbers because they don't tell a story. They don't really tell about what's happening to these victims and the causes behind it. And that's why we have our hate crimes unit, and that's why every station has a hate crimes coordinator, so we can start looking at the underlying problems and actually get a grasp on the causes of these. So, next slide. Okay, this is basically just a summary of everything that I just went through. If you look at the bottom, one distinction here, it kind of goes over which ones were COVID related. What qualifies it as being COVID related is during the investigation, either statements by the suspect or witness as far as what went on during the incident. COVID was mentioned, or certain circumstantial evidence existed that identified it as being related to the recent COVID. Next slide. So for this year, for current information as of last week, we had 1 hate crime and 1 incident in February, both were COVID related. And then there were 2 incidents in March. That doesn't include what happened this week. This week, what Supervisor Hahn already mentioned, we had 2 incidents. One of them was in Hacienda Heights, and the other one was in Diamond Bar. The one in Hacienda Heights, there was, just in the news today, there was an incident that almost mirrored it, although the races were different. There was a worker in a bakery that asked somebody to put their mask on, and they had a violent reaction. So this is not something that's specific to us here. It's something that we're experiencing all over the place. And through accurate and effective reporting, we are able to actually have an impact on these incidents. And I think over time, we'll be able to see that we'll get a handle on these and the number of occurrences will go down. And I'll just kind of skip to that. That's one of the trends that I'm seeing now. Because of these meetings that we're having with the community, with different levels of government, law enforcement, is bringing, including us actually putting things into effect and not just talking about it. We're seeing more information coming into our detectives. The investigations that are going on have more statements from witnesses, more video, more people coming forward and talking about what happened. That has a direct impact on us being able to identify suspects. And once the suspects are actually identified, we can start resolving these issues either by getting them in front of the judicial aspect so that they can apply these laws, but we're also able to talk to them and find out what a lot of the causes are. So we're seeing a direct impact in the cooperation between all parties involved, and it's extremely positive, and I think that's how we're going to get an actual handle on the situation, is this exact level of cooperation between everybody. So I'll go back to some of the reasons why our numbers are lower on the reports than they are in the news, and that's underreporting. People have a number of different reasons for underreporting. A lot of them are personal, a lot of them are cultural, immigration fears. Just because somebody is not a citizen or they weren't born here should definitely not be a reason to not report crimes. But it's a legitimate fear that people have, which prevents them from reporting. Language, somebody doesn't speak the language, it's really difficult to call up and talk to somebody, especially in law enforcement, when you're afraid that they're not going to understand you. And just fear of law enforcement. In the media, there's a lot of rhetoric going on around law enforcement, and that kind of puts people off as far as wanting to report even when they're a victim. Faith in the system, cultural beliefs, and apathy. I don't want to get involved, or it's not going to make a difference. So these are all things that we need to have, and we do for the most part, a remedy for. We just need to make sure we get the word out and have more communication with every group that's involved. A few things that we can do. See our next slide. There's a few different ways that we can report crimes. One, if it's an emergency, definitely call 911 and speak to your local sheriff station or police station. First and foremost, that's the most effective thing to be able to do. If you're safe, you can call the station line, not 911, and report it, or ask for a deputy to come to your house and take a report there. If you're a witness, or if you know somebody who actually committed that crime and you want to stay anonymous, there's also a program, a nonprofit organization called Crime Stoppers, and you can call and remain anonymous. And also, if the suspect is arrested based off of your tip, you can receive a reward for every crime. So you can call Crime Stoppers or go to their website. It's www.lacrimestoppers.org. Or there's a phone number, which is 1-800-222-TIPS. And there's an app also. You can go on the App Store, the Apple App Store, or the Google Play. So no matter who you are in the process, friend, family member, victim, witness, call one of these entities and they'll be able to direct you. For the county, we also have, we'll talk about this a little later also, but 211. 211 is a great one-stop shop for victims and support. They have a seemingly endless number of resources for victims to get them the support that they actually need. It's a great hub and spot. Can we, next slide please? So they have a website also, and again, they're going to cover this a little later, but 211la.org, or you can just dial 211. Next slide, please. And things we can do to stay safe. This is extremely important. And number one, just if you think your safety, your personal safety is immediately threatened, create distance. Go towards other people. Let everybody else know exactly what's going on. Don't be afraid to be vocal. yell for help. If you have a phone, call 911. Then another thing, just be aware when you're walking at night. Don't have your head in your cell phone all the time. Just be aware of your surroundings. Again, call 911 and let everybody else know what's going on if you look at your systems. If you're going somewhere at night, park in a well-lit area, good visibility, close to walkways, stores, and people. And if you think somebody's following you, switch directions. Again, just seek out a lot more people and let them know what's happening. And I think that does it for me. Thank you very much for
Detective Supervisor Hahn, and I just thank you for your presentation. And I don't know if the sheriff may touch on this too, but when I met with the residents last Sunday, part of their angst is that they're not sure, even when they report it, that these perpetrators are being apprehended, and prosecuted. They have a real sense that some of these crimes are, competitive. What's the word I'm looking for? Happens more than once, and they just don't feel like the apprehension piece of this is working as well as they'd like. Can you speak to, what you, and again, maybe the sheriff wants to touch on that, what are you doing once they do make the effort to report it? How can they be assured that, the sheriff's department is doing everything they can to actually apprehend these people who are perpetrating these crimes?
Yeah, so thank you very much for asking that. And that's what kind of it was explaining when I was responding to what you said earlier about those 2 incidents that just happened. That's one difference that I see now. We're getting more information, we're getting better information. Part of the problem with the underreporting before is it's very difficult to fit the definition of hate crime, which we're responsible for adhering to, when we're not getting all the information that supports the filing for that crime. But when we do have information from witnesses and victims, and once we identify the suspect, even from the suspect, that is the only way we're going to get that full comprehensive investigation. And that's what's changing so far. In these last few weeks, we're getting a lot more information, and that's, frankly, that's why you're seeing a larger number of incidents and hate crimes coming in. So I don't want that to be off-putting. Like the problem is continuing to grow. I think our reporting is improving, and so we're getting more accurate numbers as time goes on. But also with those last 2 incidents that just happened this week, we have suspects identified, and they'll talk about that later too. Which is a departure from what we've been seeing, where we get the information, it's partial, and we cannot actually locate the suspect because we don't have enough information.
Good, thank you, Detective. That's great. I know the community really appreciates that answer.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Detective. So at this time, I have confirmation that we do have Sheriff Ian Nueva on the line. So we'll introduce him in a moment. But before we do have a couple of other people I'd like to introduce. So from the office of Senator Bob Archuleta, we have Kyle Miller. And we also have Council Member Steve Ty on the line with us. So thank you both for being here. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Sheriff Ian Nueva, who has shown his commitment to keeping our community safe and has come to the East San Gabriel Valley many times, hosting town halls and having meetings with the community. Sheriff, if you are able to unmute yourself, we'd love to have you take the floor.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and Supervisor Hahn, thank you for inviting me to this town hall. That kind of is the bookend to this morning, where we had a press event in front of the Hall of Justice, where we had all the different leaders of our Asian Pacific Islander community. We had the consul generals of Japan, Korea, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, and representatives from the People's Republic of China. And then we had the Chamber of Commerce, we had the Sheriff's Civilian Advisory Council, we had Kim and Chester Chong, and all these different groups that are Simone Pang, everyone who's been working together to bring awareness to all the different API community, how we can combat hatred and these hate incidents and hate crimes. And I want to thank our detective for giving a really good explanation of where we're at. And something I want to add about how we can protect ourselves. When you're facing something that looks like it's a hate incident, the very important thing is let's not stick around to see if a hate incident evolves into a crime. If something is going sideways, looks like it's a conflict, the best thing you can do is walk away, drive away, don't engage. Report it, but don't engage a person who could be the suspect. Because that could have very bad consequences, because you just never know who you're dealing with. There's people out there that are evil, they're harmful, they're armed, you don't know what their mental status is, and you don't want to find it the wrong way because you got into a conflict and it escalated. Disengage, walk away, drive away, let us know immediately. Call 911. We'll be the ones who will step up there and we'll find out what happened, who was involved. And again, as the detective said, everyone is now starting to come forward with a lot of information. It's really putting all the pieces together and really letting us understand. Even hate incidents all by themselves, we want to catalog them because a person who's involved in a hate incident one day might be your suspect another day. And this gives us a very good idea of what their motivation is, their intent, and all the other people involved. So definitely every hate incident is worth reporting. Let us know about it, and we'll figure out where we're at between the incident and the hate crimes themselves. And as the detective said, for the weekend, we went 2 for 2. 2 suspects in custody, and they're now in the hands of the district attorney for prosecution. We have our concerns on that side of the house, but hopefully he'll do the right thing. I know Supervisor Hahn shares the same concern. We want them to do the right thing because some of the hate crimes fall under the misdemeanor side of the house, not the felony side, and that's where there's a lot of discretion in prosecution and consequences. And we don't want to incentivize hate crimes by not prosecuting them and not holding people accountable. That's very, very important. That is one thing we have to hold firm on that. Everyone as a committee coming together, that we have to hold people accountable for hatred and what they do with that hatred. And with that, we're here. I'm here to support the API community and all the good residents and Supervisor Hahn's district and the other 4 districts, because I know the community is so rich, so diverse. We have the languages. You can call in whatever language you speak, and you can call 911. We will find someone to speak your language. And we have deputies now who speak Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, Vietnamese, Tagalog, all the different languages. We have someone who can speak your language. And that definitely, the situation will be documented, it will be addressed, and hopefully we'll have a good resolution. And we're going to stand firmly shoulder to shoulder with all our good friends in the API. And with that, I'll kick it back to you, Supervisor Hahn, and your moderator.
Well, thanks, Anna. You were late to the party tonight, but I just want you to know that before you got on, you don't have to tell me why, but before you got on, I did say specifically, I was so happy that you were joining us tonight at this meeting. I think it means so much to the community that you actually took the time to be in this virtual meeting with me. Because I think this is a time for these communities. They really need to see you and I both standing in solidarity with them against hate. And it means a lot to me that you're on with us tonight. So thank you.
Oh, you got it. I'll always be with you.
Thanks. Okay, Lauren, back to you.
Wonderful. Next, we will be hearing from Robin Toma, Assistant Director of the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations, which is the lead agency behind LA County's anti-hate program, LA versus Hate. He's also the Assistant Director of the county's Workforce, Aging Development, and Community Services Department. He'll be presenting solutions on LA versus Hate. He'll be presenting on solutions as well as the program. Robin, please take it away.
Thank you, Lauren, and I hope that you can hear me because I'm doing this curious thing of doing the video through one device and my audio through another because it didn't seem to work the other way. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. I want to also thank Supervisor Janice Hahn for hosting this event and including us. I always appreciate her leadership. I can recall many years ago when one of the terrible outbreaks of hate violence happened in the South LA area in the Harbor Gateway, and she was there. And I know she's had a long commitment to the work of keeping our community safe from hate. So thank you, Supervisor Hahn, for all of your entire career and particularly your leadership around this now. So, the deputy, Tom, who did his earlier slide presentation prior to the sheriff, really did a great job of sort of introducing what I'm going to talk about. He mentioned LA versus hate. So now that you know all about hate crime and you know the sheriff's commitment, the sheriff's department's commitment to it, having heard Sheriff Ian Nueva talk about it, the question is, so what, yes, reporting is critically important, and we want you to do that. We also know, as Deputy Tom said, there are many circumstances in which people don't report. And it's not just any given community. We know that, and hate crime in particular is underreported at a very high rate. The estimate is that there are twice as many hate crimes that are actually reported to the FBI each year. And those are verified year after year in studies. So we know that, and so we wanted to address one of the issues which Deputy Chong mentioned. We know that sometimes people, for whatever reason, are reluctant to go to the police. And we want them to know that there is another route where they're still going to be recognized as having suffered an act of hate. And more importantly, you got a little bit of a sense of the differences between a hate crime and a hate incident. And sometimes it's not so clear to a person what that difference is. We don't want them to have to guess. If they're not sure and they think this is something that doesn't require immediate attention, they can also call 211. 211 has been a partner of ours. We partnered with them specifically because we want there to be a place for people to go when they don't call the police or think it's not a crime. We have come to recognize that, unfortunately, as Deputy Chong talked about, there are many incidents of hate that occur, and many more that are reported. Remember, the ones he showed you are actually ones that they just happened to be reported by people thinking that they were hate crimes. We all have experienced, probably in our lifetime, acts of hate towards us because of our race, our gender, sexual orientation, religion, or any of these things that people think we are. I know personally, I've been told to go back to where I came from, even though when I was being told that I was where I came from, here in LA. I have been told me and my family were told, Jack, get out of here. Not that long ago. And by a kid on a bike, who I'm sure didn't even know the meaning of that word, Jack, and what it meant to Japanese Americans who had been imprisoned during World War II for nothing more than their race. And I will tell you the truth. When that happened, no one in our family reported it. Why? Because we had no idea that it was something that we needed to report. So I say that because I think we can all think about times when we have been subjected to hostility, a racial slur, or other kind of epithet, and we just let it slide. What this is about, LA versus hate is about, is to say, we're not going to let it slide anymore. We're not going to allow the normalization of hate. And so what that means is that we have set up a way for you to let us know and to get help. We promise to offer assistance to every single person because, besides a hate crime being investigated by the police, there are other things you can do. There are other things that can be done. There are rights under our state civil rights laws that allow you to pursue civil action against someone who commits hate against you. You can get counseling. You can get file complaints with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing who handle the enforcement of our state hate crime laws. You can contact others who are taking action against hate in their neighborhood. You can post signs. You can have your neighbors post signs. You can spread it through social media. So let me just take you a little bit through that and give you a sense of why we've done this. But let me just say that, we recognize as the agency, as the Human Relations Commission of the county, we are the ones who have been doing annual reports on hate crime in our county for the past 40 years. And when we do that, we get a full picture of what's happening throughout the county. You saw the numbers by the Sheriff's Department, but I'll tell you that that those same numbers are much larger than the entire county. When we add the other 45 city-based police agencies, when we add the many other university, college, school district-based police agencies that report hate. And so in LA County, we saw from 2018 to 2019, a 32% increase in anti-Asian crime. We also have been seeing that from other agencies, the LAPD reported more than a doubling of anti-Asian hate crime in this past period. And sadly, we have seen hate crime rise over the past several years against all groups. So we know that this is an ongoing challenge, that we needed to do something different than what we've been doing before. So we created LA versus Hate. And the idea behind LA versus Hate is not just to have a campaign of public education and engagement and one that calls for unity. We wanted to make sure that there was actually something that people could do about it, and to report all those acts of hate that up until now they just let slide, that they accepted as being normal in our society. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So there are three major components to LA versus Hate. One is that we engaged with a partner to really help us utilize social media as a way to reach the many people in LA County. So we know there's so many different subcultures and cultures, so many different communities that really don't necessarily talk to each other. And they don't necessarily all like the same kind of messaging. So we recognize that a very effective, cost-effective way would be to create a whole variety of messages that really express different communities and their own identity. And so if you go to www.laversushate.org, you will find the huge selection of digital art and gifts that you can download and share on your Facebook account or your Instagram or Twitter or any manner of way. And millions of people have already done that. We wanted to make it easy for people to show that they are united against hate. We also wanted to make sure that people understood the importance of reporting hate, and they knew about how to do it. And as you know, it's calling 911 or going to laversushate.org. Or you can go to our partner, www.stopaapihate.org. And then the last thing, we really engage young people and artists in their communities to express their own unique messages against hate. The second component, which you can see in the middle, is about establishing a whole new apparatus for reporting hate and gathering that information for our county. So 211 LA is our partner, and they now, if you call them, they are open 24 hours, 7 days a week, any language, confidentially and free. They will help you. They will take down the information and offer you assistance. We collect that data, which helps us to analyze what's happening where in the county, who's committing acts of hate against whom, what type of act, where is it happening, and that helps us to then organize our resources and allocate them to where the need is greatest. And the third column you can see is about all of you, building our local community capacity to effectively respond and prevent hate acts. And so we've also partnered with a number of community nonprofits that work throughout the county who can assist you. And not only just assist you, but help you address where it's coming from. If it's happening in a school or a store, we can help you to go to those places and to ensure that they are taking action to make it less likely to happen anywhere else. And that's a very important step. Next slide, please. So as we're, okay. So interestingly enough, I see the new slide on my phone, but not on my laptop. To tell you how badly it's lagging. So now you can see just some of the digital content that I was talking about that you can download for free from laversushate.org. And it just gives you the sense that, you know, you can express it from your city's point of view, your favorite sports team's point of view, your ethnic community. You can do it in different languages. So there's really something for everyone there. And I encourage you to just have fun and take a look at that and download by just clicking on the image down to your phone or your laptop and then share it. Next slide, please. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing to you someone who has become an ambassador at LA Versus. I think that a year ago she was living her life and had no idea she would be where she is today, except that she was a victim of an act of hate, a really terrible one. And I'm going to let her share that with you. But she's someone who has since, because of her her willingness to speak out, has been on. It's been covered by the Los Angeles Times, CNN, National Public Radio, USA Today, Time Magazine, and the list goes on. That's just a sampling. In fact, she was earlier tonight doing a piece on KTLA Channel 5. So I'm really happy to have her join us and to share with you her story. Hahn?
Thank you, Robert.
Are you there?
Yes.
Please,
Thank you so
go
much for
ahead.
having me. A few months ago, I was at a restaurant in Los Angeles. I was in line waiting to order my food. The person next to me came up to me and handed me his business card and said, "Hey, let's have lunch." I respectfully declined and informed him, "No, I'm sorry, I'm married." He then snatched the business card from me and told me to go back to Asia. This was then followed by another about 2 minutes full of hateful, derogatory words. I knew that if he took another 2 to 3 steps towards me, I would have been cornered in. I asked for help from those around me, and they did the best they could do to help me under these circumstances. An employee was able to eventually escort him to the other side of the restaurant. I then called 911 for myself, as I was crying uncontrollably and crying. The police officer arrived about 30 minutes later. I showed him the video of the incident, and he just asked me, "Well, what do you want me to do?" I asked him if he could walk me to my car since my husband was on the way. As we were walking, I was asking him if this kind of thing happens all the time. He told me, "Yeah, this is normal." I asked if I were to show the video and someone were to recognize him, is there anything we can do? He told me, "No, there's nothing we can do. We can't even do a 51-50 hold. There's no crime here." I then asked if I would be able to get a police report, and he told me, "No, there's no crime, so there's no report." He then rushed me to my car to go to the lady. So there was definitely a lack of compassion and empathy from all parties involved. A few hours later, my husband and I were debating whether or not we should share the video of the incident. We wanted to protect the privacy of my family, but at the same time, we also wanted to share the video because we had heard there were over 2,500 attacks against the AAPI community by that time. And so we knew we had to share the video. Within hours, it went viral on both Facebook and Instagram. The LAPD then reached out to me after the video went viral. They apologized to me. They took my police report as a hate incident, and then we trained all of the patrol officers on how to address acts of hate when they respond to calls. About 48 hours later, the next victim came forward after she saw my video to say she was also assaulted by the same man while she was with her 10-year-old son in July of 2019. Her case ended up becoming a hate crime with a criminal threat and has now been escalated to the city attorney's office for review. My case, along with the and 4 victims that came forward after seeing my video are now supporting that case. The restaurant since then has now offered bystander training to the employees since we found out this past week that from Stop AAPMP that there has been over 3,800 incidents within the past year, and that the majority of the incidents are actually happening inside of businesses. And now I have collaborated with LA vs. Hate in order to help other victims. For myself, I had a lot of PTSD, insomnia, and I was afraid to go outside after my incident. And for me, counseling was very, very crucial. And the county is now connecting other victims to me in order to share their story. And I, in turn, am also able to connect other victims to LA vs. Hate in order to help them find resources such as counseling, medical assistance, legal aid, and services. And in addition to partnering with Stop AAPI, I am also partnering with Asians American Against Injustice in order to spread the word that they are actually providing bystander training and intervention training to anyone that would like to attend. There's several trainings coming up, and as of the other day, they already have over 21,000 people that have signed up for this training. And so my message today is that if you are ever a victim to an act of hate, please report, because you may not be the only victim. And in my case, there were 5 other victims. And if you are ever a witness to an act of hate, I strongly urge you to say something. And after the incident is over, to console the victim, because more than likely, they will have a lot of trauma from the incident, and so that would be the best way to support them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hahn. I just want to say, publicly how appreciative we are of your willingness to speak out, and your courage was truly contagious, because if it wasn't for you, so many other victims would not have come forward, and you would not be in a situation you are now where the criminal justice system is working to ensure that the man who accosted you, that there will be consequences for him, and that he won't be doing this to other people. And we also are happy that working with you, we're able to work with the business that you are at to help them be better in protecting people who are going to be maybe harassed by others. That's such an important thing that people can do. It's not just the victims, but it's the businesses, it's the schools, it's the cities, it's the neighborhoods, it's the workplaces where these things occur. And so we're really happy to partner with you, and as well as StopAAPIHate.org and Asian American Advancing Justice in this work. I hope you can stick around, because I'm sure people may have questions for you. And I'm going to wrap up really soon. If we can go to the next slide, and we'll try to go through these quickly. So just to give you a sense of the kinds of calls that we've been getting to our 211 helpline, where people reported hate, and this is just this is over the last calendar year in 2020. So we received 562 calls, and this is the breakdown of the kinds of calls that we've been getting. The most are derogatory names, and this isn't just independent. In other words, sometimes we're getting derogatory names and threats of violence, but at 80% of the time it's been threats of violence, discriminatory treatment at 19% of the time, physical assault and battery 22% of the time, and that's very disturbing. Bullying in schools 9%, and of course this was higher when schools actually had kids in the classroom and on campus. Burglary and robbery 5%, sexual assault 4.6%, graffiti and vandalism 7%, and even you can see hate mail, business refused service, and attempted murder and cross-burning and bomb threats and displays of swastika. So you can tell that the whole varied types of things that we're seeing that we did not know about until LA versus Hate and 211 were set up to receive such reports. And this has all been really helpful to us in understanding how different it can be than hate crime that gets reported to us. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, the thing about LA versus Hate that is really unique is that we're not only putting on a message, we're actually providing specific assistance to everyone who calls. We try to figure out what they need and try to address those needs, but we also are trying to make sure that the communities and the schools and other places that are experiencing hate have support as well. And so we work with 12 different community-based agencies that are led by a nonprofit called Special Service for Groups. An arts-led agency named Task Force is created all the incredible digital messaging that you saw earlier on the slides, and that's on laversushate.org. And we did in-person events, a yarn bomb that where I first met Hahn Lee, as well as different kinds of events in communities to really show communities' voices against hate. We work with the school districts in Lakewood to help with bullying and prevention programs. And so what we do is we actually have case coordinators who really help you to get the help you need and connect you to the right people. And we're also working on policy changes with elected officials and others to really get to the root cause of hate and help victims of hate and prevent this from happening to others. Next slide, please. So this gives you a sense of some of the other art that's there, and I'm just going to even hold up this one. You can see a poster that we created for Los Angeles County and United Against Hate. These posters are available to put on your window, to share with friends, and we're developing other kinds of posters that you can put in your workplace or bumper stickers for cars and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to tell you about, but I just want to leave you with this. We, as a commission, our mission is about transforming prejudice into acceptance, inequity into justice, and hostility into peace. And LA versus Hate is a very bold, ambitious way of doing this, but it'll only work if everyone does something to support the work. You don't have to do something as extraordinary as Hahn has done in stepping up and speaking to so many people and helping other victims. But even if you were to just download the digital sticker and to share it with others, we can become the kind of community that we deserve to be. And I just want to end with a vision statement of the department that I'm with, which is Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services. And our vision statement is that we are an unstoppable force that uplifts and protects our most vulnerable and builds vibrant, thriving communities free of prejudice and inequity. I really invite you to contact us, and we will be happy to work with you and your community to not just address hate that's happened, but to prevent further hate from happening. And know that you're not alone. That not only us, but thousands of others and organizations throughout this county are with you. Thank you.
Lauren, can I just say something to, where's my video, to Robin? Really thank you so much for being here tonight. And, you do so much good stuff. One of the things I found that really was supportive was the rally in Diamond Bar on Sunday that LA versus Hate provided some of the posters that said LA County stands against hate. And it was a real unifying support for people at the rally. I know I grabbed one of those signs to hold it, and that's a big support to community groups who, want to show their solidarity against hate, but some of us aren't that great at making our own signs. And it was a really supportive thing to do, and it provided a great unity, particularly at that rally in Diamond Bar. So thank you. And Hanley, thank you for your words tonight.
Thank you. It was a very powerful presentation, and we appreciate the resources that were shared and like the posters, and hope everyone will check out the website, maybe download an image, and we just appreciate LA versus Hate being with us. At this time, I'd like to make a couple more introductions. We have from Congresswoman Grace Napolitano's office, Perla Hernandez on the call with us, or joining us tonight, I should say. We also have Scott Martin, President of the Hacienda Heights Improvement Association, who's on our meeting, who's also with us tonight. So we thank them for their support. Now we will be introducing our acting captains over Walnut Diamond Bar Sheriff Station and Industry Sheriff Station. Welcome, Acting Captain Stephen Towsey. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, I'm Acting Captain Stephen Towsey. I'm at the Walnut Diamond Bar Sheriff Station. And I'm looking over the questions over on the right-hand side, and I'll just issues. There's a question about increasing police presence in our cities. So in February, we had the series of robberies with a group of males who were driving through our areas and targeting women, and women carrying purses in parking lots. There were three crimes took place. One started in the bakery, which became somewhat newsworthy. Those suspects were taken into custody, but it led to 3 separate robberies in our area. Laura reached out to us after hearing concerns from the community. We immediately put additional police resources in the area of Rowland Heights to address that issue, and like I said, we immediately took the suspects into custody as well. Currently, we do have extra patrols in the area of Rowland Heights. It's being supplemented by our detectives, as well as even tonight where we have the reserves. We have an operation tonight. Reserves are doing a suppression operation. Another thing I see is what can we do to minimize our chances of being victimized? And there's another question, what can we do to fight the crime so that I can go shopping free of worries? So what I would say to that is you always have to be aware of your surroundings. You should never feel like you should never be shopping free of worries. You should always be aware of your surroundings, see who's around you, make eye contact with those around you. If you're about to be victimized by someone, he doesn't want you to see him or recognize him. If you look him in the eyes and acknowledge him, he's going to move on to a different victim. Our areas are very safe. City of Rowland Heights, as well as the cities of Diamond Bar and Walnut. Almost all of our crime comes from burglaries, larcenies, and GTAs. 85 to 90% of our crimes. So we are not an area that is plagued with violent crimes. Violent crimes would be homicides, rapes, robberies, and assaults. So, City of Rowland Heights, in 2020, 85% of our crimes were burglaries, larcenies, and GTAs. In 2019, it was 95% of our crimes were burglary, larcenies, and GTAs. So I want just everyone to be rest assured that you are safe in our communities. It's a very great area to raise your kids and live. We are out there. We are protecting the community. And also, to get involved, we have community events, business watches, neighborhood watches. please get in touch with Louis Denver. If you're not in Rolling Heights, you should be very familiar with our Community Resource Deputy, Louis Denver. If not, I'll give you our station phone number. It's 909-595-2264. You can call that number and I'll get you in touch with our Community Resources, Louis Denver. Yeah, for now I'll pass it on to Acting Captain Rick Rector for information about Industry Station.
Please go ahead, Acting Captain.
Thank you, Lauren. Good evening. My name is Rick Rector. I am the Acting Captain of Industry Sheriff Station. My station is responsible for providing law enforcement services in the Hacienda Heights. I've been here at the station for the last 3 years. Let me first start by saying thank you for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I do have some sad news to report. As others have mentioned, we did have a misdemeanor hate crime occur against one of our Asian community members in Hacienda Heights. The crime occurred at one of our local bakeries. The situation started with an Asian employee asking an elderly female to leave the bakery because she was not wearing a mask. The elderly female became upset, yelled a racially charged comment, threw a pastry item, and then a sizable non-dairy creamer bottle at the employee, which struck her in the lower body. The now suspect left the store and drove away from the location. I'm happy to report the bakery employee was not injured. A crime report was immediately taken by deputies from my station, and after a quick and thorough investigation by our detective bureau, we located and arrested the suspect. The suspect now has a court date in June. Our goal here at Industry Station and the Sheriff's Department as a whole is to always provide the highest quality law enforcement services to all our members of the community. We know that in order to accomplish this, we must establish positive relationships based on trust and respect with the citizens we serve. Open lines of communication are paramount. As with many of the missions we have to serve, our highest probability of success comes from partnering with the community. Addressing this topic is no different. So I say to our Asian community members, please do not hesitate to contact the station if you have any information related to hate crime or even any suggestions about preventative measures. I'm being proactive in addressing this issue here at the station by increasing our shift briefings on this topic with our patrol personnel, our service area teams, and our great town sheriffs. I've increased patrols specifically around the high volume shopping areas. My town sheriff for Hacienda Heights, Deputy Rowano, has established a business watch group with our Asian business owners, which actually attributed to the reporting of this last hate crime. I plan on orchestrating a Hacienda Heights Safety Summit like we have done in the past to address key issues such as this. I'm telling my station personnel to remain vigilant and continue their outreach to our Asian community members and business owners in order to establish open lines of communication regarding this topic. And of course, we always appreciate the support we get from Supervisor Hahn's office, and we will continue to work in concert to address this issue. I will end by saying this, to our valued Asian community members, please talk to us about this topic. If you have something to report, share, please do not hesitate to call the station. And if you prefer to share information anonymously, please use Crime Stoppers. I can be reached here at Industry Station, or if you prefer, you can go through Miss Lauren Yokomizo, who can put you in contact with me. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Wonderful. Thank you to both of our acting captains, both Acting Captain Stephen Tausi and our Acting Captain Rick Rector from Walnut Diamond Bar and Industry Stations. At this time, we want to transition into a Q&A. So both of our captains have talked about the plan, and the supervisor wanted to make sure that we have a plan. So I hope that the community was assured tonight, hearing things like increased patrol, using compassion, and being able to focus on certain areas, as the captains have mentioned. So we just wanted to make sure that that was shared up front tonight, as that is the top question we received. So I will move on to some of the questions. I will actually be asking the question we've been looking in the chat, and we have some questions that we would like to ask of our panelists. So, first question, we have an individual who has said that we need an elite team that focuses on apprehending those who are committing robbery and theft. Sheriffs, either of our acting captains, can you please comment on this?
Sure. This is Steve Towsey at Walnut Sheriff Station. Number one, our deputies are always out there patrolling. We have elite detectives at our station that are investigating the crimes when we get leads. And we also work with Burglary Robbery Task Force. It's a unit within the Sheriff's Department that follows up on all the high value burglary robbery targets that are out there. Things that go into different counties, different jurisdictions, cover different large areas of stations. So the sheriffs does have their own elite unit called the Burglary Robbery Task Force. Our station detectives and our deputies also, I would also consider them elite.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. We had a Facebook comment from an individual who said he was discriminated against at a Rouse in San Pedro. How can he report this incident? Maybe can we have Robin address this question?
Yes, Lauren. Could you repeat the incident that I'm looking in the to see if I could see it, but could you repeat it one more time?
I will repeat it.
Being reported?
Yes, absolutely. There was an individual that commented that he was discriminated against at the Rouse in San Pedro. And I believe he wants to know how he can report it, or what should he do?
Okay, so if you feel you've been discriminated against, you can do one of two things. You can go directly to the State Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which is online, and also there is, with confirmation, you can make a phone call if you prefer that. And they handle all allegations of discrimination that take place. You can also, if you have trouble with them, call 211 and we will help you. But if you want to get the direct line to the agency that handles acts of discrimination by supermarket, as you're alleging in this case, then that would be who I would suggest you call, Department of Fair Employment and Housing, DFEH, which is a state agency that handles discrimination claims. And like I said, 211 as a backup.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I think 211 is good. And, you know, this also brings up an interesting area of jurisdictions for law enforcement, right? Because San Pedro would mostly be under LAPD versus, you know, some of our areas we're talking about tonight that are patrolled by our LA County Sheriff's Department. So, and I don't know if the sheriff is still on, or you know, even the captains can talk about maybe collaboration with other law enforcement agencies in the County of Los Angeles who are they as aware as our sheriffs are about hate crimes? Are they have the same kind of, you know, compassion and perspective and intuition that our county sheriffs have about this problem? Because it is a completely different law enforcement agency.
Well, one thing we do is we work across jurisdictional boundaries. Our hate crime task force is run out of Major Crimes Bureau. Definitely, it stays in touch not only with our local municipal police departments, but also with the FBI. And so we're constantly putting our heads together, trying to figure out, because a lot of these trends is like Lieutenant Towsey was referring. You have these burglary crews, and they're just organized criminal enterprises. they don't care about city limits, and they're going from town to town, seeing, and they specialize in this type of either residential burglaries, knocking the front door, they can do commercial burglaries, or now we have the bolder one you're seeing on TV, which they're doing strong arm robberies in broad daylight. And we've been successful in taking some of these crews down lately. And it's just hard work from a lot of detectives working together, and we definitely work hand in hand with LAPD and FBI on these matters.
Thank you, Sheriff. I really appreciate that. You know, and that's what that's what our residents all want to know: is everybody working together? Are you collaborating? Are you sharing information? Because certainly crime doesn't respect jurisdictions necessarily. So that's really great that you do that. I know you have regular discussions with Chief Moore from LAPD, but that means a lot to our residents. You know, we want you all working together, sharing information, collaborating, because ultimately, you know, it doesn't matter where we are, where we live, where we shop. You know, we hope law enforcement has the same response to these crimes everywhere.
Yeah, our priority is always, let's solve the problem, let's hold people accountable, and just keep everybody safe. And that means, yes, we got to collaborate every day.
Thank you. Sheriff Nueva, this next question is for you as well. The person asks, can the sheriff come up with similar apps like the city of Irvine did to report easily and quickly incidents of hate and crimes? Are you perhaps familiar or open to something like this, an app tool?
I'm more than open to anything that's going to facilitate people reporting any type of crime or hate incident. We do have some applications. We do have an online reporting system, and I'd like to see what Irvine has, and we're more than happy to rip off anything if it works and use it ourselves.
Wonderful, thank you. This will actually be our last question for tonight. Can individuals who experience a hate crime report it anonymously?
Yes, you can report it anonymously. You can report it anonymously to our department. You can also do it online with Crime Stoppers or their 800 number. I think the detective provided that information. You can report the crimes anonymously. Not a problem whatsoever.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right. So that concludes our Q&A portion. I hope that the community was assured tonight that we do have a plan. Sheriffs are doing their part, and all of us together, I can tell you as I worked in this community that the community does work together with our agencies and our community groups. And the message I think tonight that we heard quite a bit was report, and we encourage the community to do so. In closing, I would like to thank our team behind the scenes. We had Emily Littner, who's our moderator, Nick Holden, who's doing our presentation slides, and our executive office staff. I would also like to ask if we can, I will ask if we can maybe have someone from behind the scenes type in Supervisor Hahn's field office number, Hacienda Heights field office number. I will also ask that if you're on Facebook, you'll be able to see our information. I'll also call it out. My email is lyokomizo. That's LYOKOMIZO at bos.lacounty.gov. That's a way that you can also reach out to Supervisor Hahn's office, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We'll be in touch with you.
Good job, Lauren. Good job, Lauren. Thank you, Sheriff.
You got it. Thank you all. Stay
Yes.
safe, please.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Right.